Larry Goldberg, there is, as you just said a minute ago, it's always, you know, a, X is always exciting. The popcorn symbol is used so often in our postings. Well, the popcorn is out today. Let's talk about
we should invest in popcorn, in a popcorn company. I mean, wow.
it. We should. Or the popcorn emoji company, one of the two.
Yeah, popcorn emoji company, yeah.
Well, okay, so let's start with the biggest news, the one that was just breaking a little while ago. Apparently, Elon Musk has made an offer to purchase or to take control, or it's not exactly clear, but something like that, of the ChatGPT business, the open AI business. The best I can tell, he's trying to purchase the nonprofit, which by the fact that that's what he's trying to purchase, makes me believe that it's part of the ongoing fight, part of the ongoing discussion about whether you can go from nonprofit to profit, blah, 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 and the lawsuit and the whole thing. What was, for 90 some thousand dollars.
90 some thousand, 90 some
$1,000
billion.
Yes, million.
At 90,000, I'll compete for that acquisition.
Just a little power of 10 problem there, Larry.
Yeah, I don't know how that stacks up against the valuation at which OpenAI raised in its last round. But the profit-making arm of that company raised at 157 billion.
Yeah.
So I think if Elon buys the non-profit entity for 90 billion, then the question is, who gets what from whom? This is the most fascinating dance we've seen yet. I mean, I think Elon and Sam should just, duke it out in the wrestling, in the what's that arena there they do
in the cage.
In the cage, yeah. I don't think Sam would come out very well with that, but look, it is what it is, right?
Yeah, yeah. So then it gets even, there's another layer of interest because of course xAI is involved with Microsoft. There's some kind of relationship there.
Well, what's to stop Microsoft dealing with all the AI companies? I mean, they're not bound to exclusively use OpenAI. They've got a big investment in OpenAI,
That's
by the
kind
way.
of my point. Yeah.
Very big investment, but I mean, they can use anybody's AI. They're doing their own as well, by the way.
Sure, I know. Yeah. It gets very intriguing with all of the comings and goings of these mega companies.
Well, if you look at the financials of all these companies, Microsoft is doing extremely well despite the investment in OpenAI. Google is doing extremely well despite its investment in OpenAI. Meta is doing extremely well despite its continuing investment in OpenAI.
All these are in AI, not OpenAI, but in AI.
I mean, in AI, yeah, excuse me. Actually, theirs is
And one is, yes.
supposedly OpenAI. Supposedly open AI.
Yes, yes, yes.
But it's not that open. Look, this whole space is so intriguing. People really believe this is going to be the ultimate, money printing machine. I'm not sure. I think that there is significant risk that these people are overcapitalizing on this technology, and that there may be a risk related to this technology. I come from the expert systems background.
Right.
And I believe that there is opportunity for expert systems to supplant a very significant portion of what these large language models are currently doing. I mean, large language models are you know, they're statistical machines, right? They're based upon chance,
Probability.
statistics, probability, statistics, chance, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
And you know, for years and years and years, we sought to create AI systems that were based upon knowledge, that were knowledge based, and that were expert systems based upon what we knew about the world.
Mhm.
Well, we soon learned that it was almost impossible to maintain that information, to track all the relationships between all the facts, and to even ascertain whether, in fact, what we believe to be facts were facts, and so on and so forth. So there are huge problems. I mean, it was you know, a combinatorial explosion of relationships that defeated the open system, the expert systems. Today, that may not be true. Today, we may be able to manage those combinatorial explosions. And in fact, you know, that would render, you know, statistical solutions moot. Would you rather have an exact answer to your query, or do you want a statistical answer to your query? So I think I don't think the jury's out on this. I think we've reached a point where compute power is so fantastically high that we could do things we couldn't have done 30 years ago. And that's how transformers began to work.
Right.
That's how, you know, AI using these statistical methods, these, you know, suddenly began to work. Well, I think it may be possible to, you know, to codify all the knowledge of the world and have it work. So to spend this kind of money, I just think we're spending ourselves to oblivion. So anyway, you know, what do I know? I mean, I'm just an old man guessing at these things.
Based on a career in the field.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and so there's a lot, the story has not yet been told.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, the fact that Elon is pursuing this gives it, in my mind, a lot of credibility. It's really hard to gainsay what he's doing. And he's probably going to do it better than most could or would do it. I would certainly trust him before I trusted Sam Altman. But time will tell. You know, I don't understand the bid. The bid apparently is for the nonprofit arm. I think just by doing this bid, he completely cuts out the potential for the for-profit arm, or he may demand a higher price for the nonprofit arm. It's very complicated. I don't understand how it works, this nonprofit business. I don't think anybody does, and I think, you know, it's going to be very difficult to sort out what the law is.
And so, to your point a minute ago, it's so interesting that 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, time flies now, but DeepSeek caused this massive sell-off of NVIDIA. Then NVIDIA's been coming back, and all of a sudden you have the earnings reports and the guidance from the various members of the Mag 7, the big mega scalers, all had a chance to talk about their plans for next year. And every one of them talked about increasing the amount of compute they were going to buy. And
Right.
now you add on top of that, Elon Musk seemingly giving his stamp of approval and saying, no, we really still need to go full out, full bore. That seems to be part of the implication of this buyout.
Yeah, you know, and then there's this whole complication with this $500 billion, you know, project
Yes.
that Massa is supposed to be or helping to finance. I don't know where Massa is going to get this money from, because he seems to have kind of I mean, pissed it away, actually. So who knows? I mean, this is deeper than I'm able to get into the subject. It's a puzzle, and I hope there's I hope there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. I just hope there is. But I'm a little skeptical at this point, as you can hear.
All right.
I'm
So then,
actually
go ahead.
sorry.
Go.
I'm actually invested in 𝐑𝐚𝐬𝐝.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And so I have a vested interest. I don't know how 𝐶AI ties into this bid. I don't know if it does tie into this bid. I don't know if it's a vehicle or whether this is a completely separate vehicle. It's very hard for me to figure out.
Yeah. And by the way, Larry, they're going to be calling you because they're going to need a couple of bill from you.
I'll have to look in my back pocket. I've exhausted my two side pockets.
So the other side of this, the flip side of this whole story.
By the way, they've got some very, very big backers. Apparently not I mean, Barron is in there, but I don't see other institutions. I don't see a big bank there. I see, Valor Equity Part. I see the usual suspects in Elon's equity deals. So this indicates it's an all equity deal. That amazes me. I mean, that really is amazing.
Well, it doesn't surprise me that much that Elon can raise it, but that is the second question. And that's the question that most of the people watching the program are probably even more interested in, because the stock dropped immediately by 10 bucks, went from 360 to 350. And now in overnight, it's down another couple of bucks. So 348 right now, when 350 was the, what do you want to call it? The 50%
resistance,
the resistance level for a 50%
retrace.
Your retrace. Thank you. Thank you for the help on that. Anyway, so
we old fogies have to help each other out,
we do this. It's a good thing. So Elon, the worry is that Elon would have to sell shares. He would have to sell shares in order to make this happen. And I'm thinking to myself, nah, he's going to raise it all from equity. And if people really started to believe that, it wouldn't go down 10, it would go down a lot more than 10. But how did you feel?
Yeah, he hasn't got a lot of equity left to sell. He can hardly afford to reduce his stake in Tesla until, this court case becomes clear. And, he's somewhat strapped in terms of, I don't say strapped in terms of cash, but he couldn't make a cash contribution. But I don't know how he would juggle this amongst 𝐶AI, but I'm sure he would juggle it somehow in that way. I mean, it wouldn't be a bad thing for some piece of this to come into Tesla. Tesla's got 30 billion of cash and some Bitcoin. So I don't think he's going to have to sell equity. I'd be very surprised if he sells stock to do this. That would be a taxable event. I think he wants to hold I think he would want to hold back until he knew how this court case was going to run out.
Exactly.
So I think that's all going to be a way of, maybe he gets special shares. I mean, what are special shares in a non-profit? What are these guys going to do with a non-profit? How are they going to, I mean, it just, this is so over my pay grade, I can't tell you.
Yes. And yes, well, that's kind of how I looked at it. And, I'm sure we'll maybe hear from some of the smarter legal minds, maybe. I mean, Warren Redlich, who's an actual lawyer, he's bailed out of a number of these kind of complex issues because he says that's not the area of law that he practiced.
But the reality is this is an area of law that there is not a lot of precedent on.
Exactly.
The precedent on, I've looked at the precedents of taking non-profits public, and they're few and far between. and they're a little tortured already. And so I didn't know how, Sam was going to do this. I've heard several ideas on how he would do it. I mean, apparently he has to buy it from the nonprofit. That puts money into the nonprofit's hands.
Right.
What the nonprofit then does with that money is, it has to pursue its goals, or it has to reorganize, or I don't know what it does. I don't know much about the law.
Yeah.
So it's your guess.
Okay, we will all keep guessing. So the second story, Larry, is almost as intriguing as the first, and that is apparently, and this seems to be a fact now, not just a rumor, but it seems as if the the CyberCab, which we thought would be produced in 2026, at least in some numbers, is going to be produced in June and roll out with the Austin event where the Robotaxis hit the road.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. I don't know what to believe. It's unclear. I mean, I haven't sort of delved into it because I've been, as I told you, a little bit engaged this today, but it's very interesting. We'll see. I mean, the stock is down. Everybody's talking it down. But there are some surprises coming. Look, we know that they're doing that they're doing rides in Texas and in San Francisco.
San Francisco area, maybe Fremont.
Yeah, we don't know exactly where, and we don't know to what extent. We don't know how widely it runs, and we don't know what the safety driver situation is. I'm assuming there's a safety driver since they don't have a license.
Last he said there was a safety driver. Yeah.
Right. And I don't know whether these robotaxis will have a safety driver. Well, I guess a safety driver with a little Xbox on a little controller. But it's very exciting,
Yes.
and everybody tells us that everybody's going to compete with them and they won't have a monopoly and blah, 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 blah. I mean, they're going to have a monopoly. They're going to it's going to be a blistering fight. And I don't like the odds for the rest of the operators out there.
So the things that we do know is that there are many, 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 many CyberCabs driving around the Austin facility, which is a massive.
Well, you say many, but there's handfuls.
Okay, yeah, we're not talking about hundreds, no, but handful, and that they are redoing the route. They are continuously changing
varying the route,
signage, or the way the layout is, so that they can test various aspects of the ability of those CyberCabs to do their job. There's obviously a great deal of evidence that they're trying to generate these, additional miles. At the same time,
I think they're doing that. Look, I don't think they need to generate additional miles because I think that the mileage that the fleet is doing is the mileage that they need. I think what they're doing is trying to dial in the geometry of these particular vehicles.
Okay.
So they are doing miles, but miles for these vehicles to figure out the exact geometry of the car. Because I think that's the big difference. I'm experiencing it with my CyberCab, a Cybertruck. I don't have a CyberCab yet. I have a Cybertruck, and my Cybertruck is like well behind my threes. I've got 2 3s and 1 Cybertruck, and I had an X too, but all 3 of the conventional cars were well dialed in. The software knew the exact geometry of the car, its exact quirks and quiddities of how it maneuvers through space and so on and so forth. That's not true of the Cybertruck. I've had many a scrape of the Cybertruck. I've had 2 mudguards having to be fixed
Hmm.
in my last service. And right after I brought it back from service, it ran over a curb again,
Oh.
knocking one of the wheel guards off.
Hmm.
And it was a U-turn. It did a U-turn, beautiful, beautifully executed, except too close to the curb. So clearly, the four-wheel drive is
Hmm.
a problem. But the geometry of the CyberCab is also very different.
Hmm.
It's a
Hmm.
much
Yeah.
smaller car.
Right.
It's got much bigger wheels, and so the behavior of that car, I think, is different. So that would be my guess, but it's only a guess.
Right. 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 As to what they're doing right now in
Yeah,
Texas.
so they're doing ground truth testing
Right.
on the behavior, the geometry, or whatever the physics of that car.
Right.
That's what I
Right.
think. But what
Okay.
I
Well, in fact, Larry, with your theory there, that would also explain potentially the use of a steering wheel. If there's some way for that steering wheel to overturn, like with what do you call it, steer by wire. If they wanted to take it on the streets of outside the grounds, they might be able to take it outside the grounds with that steering wheel.
Well, have we established exactly that they do have a steering wheel on
No,
it?
it's not been
No, I don't
established.
think we have. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm skeptical they have a steering wheel. I suppose they have a controller in it. The control, the robotic controller or the
Right.
handheld controller is just as good as a steering wheel, I think.
Mhm. Yeah, you could obviously control it. You could control it with your finger on a screen, I suppose, if you had
Yeah.
to.
Well, that won't be as dynamic as a
Like
well-built hand
steering wheel,
controller.
there you go,
Yeah.
Okay, but let's think in terms of what that really means is if the CyberCab is coming in June, um, from the standpoint of an introduction, I think as a marketing guy, this is a much bigger introduction because you're putting this stylized car, this gold car, very unique in every single way on the streets, which immediately begins to create the brand. And I think this is one of the things that the other guys, all of the other guys, even in China, don't have is this distinctive vehicle, distinctive interior, designed from the ground up to be a cab, to be a two-person cab. Looks
Yeah.
different, so it creates the branding right away.
Yeah, but it's also built specifically. It's built for two. It's got a very large trunk.
Yep.
It's a very inexpensive build. I mean, there's a lot of things about it. It's built to be cleaned easily. There's a lot of aspects to it that are very important. And for the US market, it's very low cost. So I don't know. It's really hard to figure out. I think it's going to be awfully successful here. There are no competitors. There are no rational competitors to it in the United States right now. I know Gary said, "Oh, everybody's going to have it." No, I don't think anybody in the United States have managed to drive, autonomously yet, other than this very expensive
Waymo.
service from, I mean, functionally it's Google, right?
Yes.
Um, Waymo. So, but there are no other real competitors in the US market. Now, in China, it's a different matter.
Right. Mhm.
China, uh, Tesla suffers from this problem of not being able to, map uh, the world in their cars, and the Chinese companies can.
Yeah.
So it doesn't look like the Chinese are going to let Tesla become, a leader in that field, and that's okay. Look, there are
Yeah.
10 trillion miles driven every year globally, and China's not, but 2.5 trillion of those miles, or 3 trillion of those miles. So
Mhm.
it's a big piece of the market, but if Tesla wins the most of the market in the US and Europe, that's huge.
Yeah.
But maybe they'll find a way to get into the Chinese market. I don't know.
Yeah,
One
it's hard
thing's
to
for
say.
sure.
Brian Wang has said that Baidu and the others that are already in that market that are already offering these taxi rides are very interested in buying Tesla vehicles because they need the production. They don't need 100 cars or 500 cars. They need 10,000 cars, and they're
Yeah.
hoping that Tesla's the one that can provide those.
Oh, they're going to need millions of cars.
No, but
Millions.
I'm saying immediately. They're not looking to ramp slowly. They want to ramp in 100 cities at once.
Well, I'm not sure how quickly Tesla could stand up a production facility for those cars. Clearly, once they haven't dialed in here, it should be very quick in China. And so maybe Brian is right. I mean, Brian is generally right. So I think, that's a good possibility. It's hard to gauge.
He's been really the only analyst that's been looking at the Chinese market. And he has obviously some advantages in terms of looking at the Chinese market. So it's so intriguing. BYD announced today that they're going to have their advanced ADA system, which they claim is better than Tesla's autopilot, but not as good as FSD. And they're going to be offering it on virtually all their cars.
Better than autopilot is, I mean, Ford's Blue Cruise is better than, I mean, Tesla's autopilot is not, I mean, the autopilot is just lane keeping.
Yeah, at speed, you don't run into the guy in front of you, and
Well, that's lane keeping and
I
distance
think
keeping.
BYD said theirs will overtake as well. I'm not sure. They said
Autopilot will not.
will not overtake. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, but they're going to offer that for free. That's going to be a free offering on, well, free.
I mean, that's meaningless. I
Meaningless.
mean, autonomy is the target. Autonomy is the only financial advantage, period. Now, in China, that advantage that they're offering with their autopilot is something because Tesla can only offer autopilot. So
Right.
if they're comparing autopilot to autopilot, then yeah. And so I think that Tesla could automatically add overtaking. Maybe they could do navigate on autopilot. I don't know, but autonomy, I think, going to require a lot more than that.
Right. Okay, so we have a big fight in Washington, D.C. Here we go back. Here we go back.
Sorry.
I was just going to say, here we go back to complicated legal aspects again.
Right, and I try to engage Warren on it, and Warren says he has no clue. But look, this judge, he's got an order in for a week. I mean, he's clearly a political operative, and he's
Right.
operating politically. It's the most inexplicable judgment I've ever seen in my life. I hope they move very rapidly and get the Supreme Court engaged. The Supreme Court should be engaged.
Good.
But I mean, Elon's doing fantastic work. I can't believe that these Democratic politicians can really realize what they're doing to themselves. I mean, I can't believe that this is an extremely unpopular move by the Democrats. I mean, what Elon is doing has been, I mean, people have been crying out for this for years.
So according to every piece of evidence that we have, CBS poll, I think it could have been NBC, but I think it was CBS poll, showed Trump at 53% approval, which is the highest approval rating that CBS has ever had for Trump. Rasmussen has been showing him consistently 51, 52, 53% approval. The CBS poll also showed him that he was the most popular among the youth. Gen Z was the most popular group for him, and then and it got less popular as you went older. So all the young people, 20, 30, 20 something, 30 something, 40 something, were the ones that were the most excited about what Trump is doing so far. 70% said that this is what he what he said he was going to do. So they recognize that he had a set of principles and he's gone in and he's executing on them. And then you didn't watch it, Larry. I'm sure you said you weren't going to watch the Super Bowl. But you have the Star Spangled Banner, fantastic, everybody singing. And in the middle of that, they put Trump's picture up on the Jumbotron, and there was massive cheers in the middle of the national anthem, which is an unusual deal.
Everything you said is correct, and I cheer that, and I'm very supportive. But this is a long distance race.
Yeah.
It's 4 years long.
Yeah.
He's got to win the first 2 years, hands down, because the back half of the 2 years are going to be, politics as usual again. I will say that he has developed a kind of avunculorism, if I can coin a phrase. He's definitely smoothed the edges off a little bit. He's definitely relaxed into the role, and he's definitely become a lot more presidential than he was in his first term. He's throwing some bombs, but not quite as
I don't know, Larry. I'm afraid you're having a hard time saying it because I'm not sure that you can prove that he's not throwing more bombs and bigger bombs.
He's throwing bombs, but those bombs don't quite have the explosiveness of his previous bombs.
Okay, all right, okay. But what I think you can say, Larry, for sure, I think we could agree on, he is on television all the time.
Yes.
He's so transparent. He's just answering question. Okay, bring him on. Hey, you got more people over here? You want to bring?
That is amazing. That is amazing. I mean, he's answered more questions in the first couple of weeks, 3 weeks of his presidential term than Biden answered in his entire 4 years.
Yeah, easily. Maybe than Obama did in 8 years. I mean, he's just constant.
I don't know. Obama was quite in the first couple of years. He's quite open.
But even just yesterday, he did that hour, whatever it was with Fox. And then he did an airplane interview with like 10 people, 12, 15 people in the airplane that went on for another.
And every time he signs a document in the Oval Office, he just lets them fire away.
It's crazy. I've never seen anything like it. So I have to believe that that's helping. So in terms of smoothing the edges, that easy way of explaining it over and over again, making sure everybody gets it, letting them ask all the questions about it.
But that differs from his first term. In his first term, he wasn't as open. He wasn't as giving. He certainly wasn't as sure of himself.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that this is, he's become quite presidential. A lot of people will differ with me. A lot of people who are on the other side. I was on the other side, as you know. I was very opposed to him, certainly in his first term.
Right.
He amazed me in his first term because even though I was strongly opposed to him from a character perspective and from a personal perspective, his policies kept on surprising me and kept on pleasing me. So when he came in his second term, firstly, I definitely changed my view. And as it was with Elon, that shooting, that attempted assassination, absolutely changed my viewpoint completely. Not so much the assassination, but his response to the assassination. I realized, wow, there's a lot more to this person's character than I gave credence to. And, but he himself has changed. He himself has developed a lot more, gravitas.
Right. So if you have, going back and pulling it back to Elon Musk and to Tesla, we've got various tariffs being proposed, tariff wars. So the latest one is this reciprocal part, Larry, and I think that people would maybe benefit from knowing a little bit more about that. So let me give you my reading. So Europe, let's say, for instance, would have I don't know the number. Let's call it a 15% tariff on Tesla sending a Cybertruck into Europe. Maybe it's 18%. I don't know, but whatever the number is. And meanwhile, maybe we don't have any tariff, or we have a 3% tariff on Mercedes sending over one of their vehicles. And Elon, and I think what Trump is saying by reciprocal is, whatever your tariff is on us, we're just going to impose it back on you. Is that how you understand it?
Yes, but it's a little bit more complicated than that because many European manufacturers assemble cars here in the US. We've given up assembly of cars in Europe.
Right.
Because most of the cars that we manufacture in this country are not big sellers in Europe. And so we don't assemble them there. A lot of the smaller cars they make in Europe have a market here in the US, and so they assemble them here. So I drove past the Mercedes plant on my travels very recently to Florida. I've driven past, a Volkswagen plant and so on. So those companies do manufacture, or at least assemble, but possibly even manufacture. And a lot of their component parts are manufactured here in the country. So they have a higher content ratio in their sales than we would have in our sales in the US. The big exception to that is Tesla.
Yeah,
Tesla is
right.
one of the few US companies still manufacturing cars. I mean, I know that GM does.
Right.
Some Ford has. I think they have somebody assemble cars for them in Europe. But anyway, the point is that Tesla is an American OEM that actually manufactures in Germany.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, so it gets complicated with regard to how this all works. But was it you that said it first, or was it Brian Wang? I can't remember that what Trump seems to be wanting to do is just a complete reset.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
resetting the world's way of doing business with the United States. I guess he doesn't really care how they do business with each other, but a
Well,
reset of how he does it with us.
we live in the world of WTO, World Trade Organization, and the World Trade Organization started off, on this concept of a flat, the earth is flat. Everybody can trade with everybody, and then the relative advantages work out and everybody does well. Well, China threw a bomb into that by joining the WTO and then promptly accepting themselves from all the rules.
Okay.
And what that did is turn everything upside down. Now, Trump in his first term did implement some tariffs.
Right.
It didn't end the world. I'm not sure. I haven't done the economics on the results for the United States, but we certainly were doing great until the pandemic economically. And so I think that he knows what he's doing. I think that he did very well economically until the pandemic, and I think he knows what he's doing. My thesis is that tariffs are not used to earn money or to bring in money to the fiscus. I think tariffs are used as a negotiating tool to enforce policy. And as such, I think that he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, but potentially economically as well. So in other words, to the extent that he hopes to generate income, he would also be able to keep both of those ideas in his head simultaneously. Because as I mentioned the other day, I can't say how many times, because I've been talking about tariffs for I don't know, 6 months now, is if you raise the tariff too high, you don't get any income from it. Because they stop importing it. So
In
if
essence,
you import
tariffs
any, it
generate,
doesn't matter with the
in
tariff.
essence, in today's world, tariffs generate very little income. Very
Yeah.
little income.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what tariffs do is they do open an opportunity to replace those tariff goods with other goods. Look, the one thing that I really do support is him closing down this business of China shipping less than $800 goods into the United States at no tariff at all. I think it's crazy. I think it's crazy.
Yeah.
and
Okay.
understand that. And so everybody buys stuff on Amazon that's
Yeah.
shipped direct.
Yeah.
You know, anyway, it's developed a huge market, huge market.
So then a piece of this, which does impact Tesla a little tiny bit, is the tariff on steel and aluminum. This goes back to what I was talking, you and I were talking about earlier in terms of strategic materials. And so steel and aluminum clearly are strategic materials. Now, most of our aluminum apparently comes from Canada, so they are at least our neighbor and good friend. But
Used to be a good friend.
it used to be a good friend. But it seems like Trump wants those strategic factories to be operating in border.
Yeah, well, then the relative advantage of manufacturing them here, I mean, you don't have a relative advantage, you have a relative disadvantage of manufacturing them here. A lot depends on the price of electricity. If we're able to deal with the price of electricity, we could manufacture steel here.
Mhm,
I
mhm.
mean, if we automate it sufficiently and so on and so forth. So time will tell. I mean, I haven't done the economics on this. There are other people who know a lot more about trade than I do, and certainly in manufacturing of steel. I think we just have to get our power problems resolved.
I
And
think power,
we do have a grid problem,
yeah,
serious grid.
right. And I think power is a big part of it, but I think the other part of it is according to Trump, and I think that my recollection of the entire thing with US Steel is just horrible management. I mean, sometimes you can have something close to parity, but the managers are so horrible that they can't get out of their own way.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. I mean, some of these old industrial companies have been very badly run.
Yeah.
There was a time that New Steel was doing a big run against US Steel, and they were quite successful for a while, but I believe they haven't been successful in recent years. I don't follow that stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And Bethlehem was also doing very well, and I don't know why they didn't end up being the catbird. All right, so we have all of that complexity. We have the real question always comes back to one thing, Larry, and that's where's the bond market? Because everybody's saying that Trump is very interested in how the stock market performs, that's how he grades himself. I've heard this dozens of times. I don't know if it's true or not, but they say that he grades himself on how well the stock market does. But right now, the stock market seems to be more a function of how the bond market operates. And it was doing well this morning, but not so well this afternoon. So but it's still under, at least it's still under 4.5.
Yeah, I think there's a theory that the bond market could actually, that the stock market could actually operate quite well, even with the bond market at 5%. It's just a question of getting used to it. I mean, I, until we see a full recovery of the industries that are suffering so badly, I think the like all the smaller stocks, all the non-Mag 7 stocks are going to struggle. So the bond market is one factor, energy costs are another factor, but then people, people getting to work and being productive is a whole nother matter. And when you got 20 million people out of our shrinking 70 million labor force working for government, that's not going to work.
Yeah, yeah.
I think we should pass a law limiting the total number of people who can be employed in all government
In all government.
by a certain amount, and that'll fix everything.
Right. Yeah, and then we've got a bunch of people sitting home on their duff. This is a whole nother subject that I don't usually even try to cover it on this channel, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do cover it on X, which is young men, let's say men, even older men, but men from the age of 16 to age, say, 50 that just aren't in the labor market.
I know.
They're
Well,
discouraged.
I have been complaining about the shrinking of the labor market, for 2 years now.
Yeah,
And I continue to complain about it because that ultimately is the determinant of our potential
right,
GDP.
right. Yeah.
Until we have enough bots, that's going to be the determinant.
Yes. And so so Elon figured out how to get the men in the 7 states to register and go to the polls. Maybe we should ask Elon if he could figure out how to get those men back to work.
That's right. That's right.
So Elon, there you go. One more job, man. One more thing to put on your plate.
Yeah, it's nothing. He's already sleeping 4 hours a night. He doesn't need 4 hours of sleep.
He says that he has tested it, that he needs 6. If he
He
doesn't
needs
get his
six.
6, if he doesn't get his 6, he's not as effective under 6 as he is when he gets 6. So
you think he's been getting 6 or not?
I don't know. Listen, Larry, you know this as well as I do. Most people have no idea that this is true, but I bet you do. It's all about delegation.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
If you hire and give your employees ownership of their job, and you hire really well, you hire really good people, you can. I was running 3 companies simultaneously. It's not even that hard. It's like you gotta hire the best and turn them loose, let them do their job. That was I call that the Reagan doctrine. Hire the best and turn them loose. That was what he did.
Well, one thing's for sure, Elon knows how to hire people.
Yeah.
He's done an exceptional job at hiring people. Now, he doesn't do a great job at keeping those people, but maybe that's his secret anyway. He's constantly refreshing the teams. I mean, if people work for 6 years with him, they exhausted at the end of that 6 years.
That's exactly right. I think I've said this before on my channel, Larry, maybe not to you. There was a company in the bicycle industry called Specialized Bicycles. And the owner of that company was just like that. He would bring them in and burn them out. And then people would, when they left Specialized, they would be hired anywhere. They were immediately hireable and they would go to something a little less stressful and get paid as much or more. But they were going to basically a specialized university, people used to call it. And they were immensely, under demand once they went through specialized universities. So I think that's what happens with Tesla, is the same kind of idea. Larry, it turns out that the company that you and I love so much is really trying to keep that 350. It doesn't really want to stay under 350. So it's at 349 and 36 cents right now. So it seems like 350 is pretty solid, at least for the moment. We'll see if that.
I don't think it's going to hold 350.
You don't? Wow, interesting. Because
too much noise.
Too much noise. Okay.
Yeah, I think this is a really, once in a lifetime buying opportunity coming up. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's not my advice to anybody, but I will tell you that at these levels, I'm ready to buy. I don't know at what point, and it may just shoot up again, but I'm getting itchy.
You're getting itchy. You said that on, I think it was Friday or Saturday when it was 360, and now at 350. I bet you're itchier yet. Well, okay, so the Dow was down 160.
350 is the same as 360. I mean, I don't mind buying around a price, and even if it goes down a little bit more or goes up, I don't mind buying around a price. This is the price I want to be buying around.
So, CPI is on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And so people right now would be setting themselves up for the CPI, because the CPI has turned out, is now again, it's kind of top of mind in terms of this bond situation. So the Dow did go up 167 today, which would suggest that they are buying into the idea that the CPI will be at least moderate, if not a little down.
Right.
NASDAQ was down up 190 rather. S&P was up 40. So, I mean, everything was in pretty good shape except for Tesla. All the Mag 7 were up. Cathie Woods were mixed. But I think the Cathie Woods were mixed because why? Because the bonds.
And because of Tesla.
And maybe because of Tesla, of course. So you've got the bonds, which were doing well this morning, are now in the after hours. I'm sorry, the pre-market up 0.6%. Oh, whoop! Looky there. It's gone back past 4.5, but it's only 4.501. So I think that the bonds will hold at 4.5 and not go any higher. That's my guess. Now, anything will change on Wednesday, but I'm still looking for those bonds to drop like a rock, Larry. That's that we got to have.
What's your prediction? What's your projection for CPI? Prediction for CPI?
It's always so hard to know when those rents are going to come in. You and I had that long conversation on Saturday. The rents are definitely down, but have they made it into the CPI yet? This is always the issue. The home prices are still going up like 4% at least.
Yeah, they are.
So
I think the rent I think the rent starts to come in this month. Certainly by next month for sure, right?
will start to show. Okay. Yeah, so I think that's the big factor because I think overall according to Kathy anyway, she was suggesting that it looked like overall that the prices were okay, more or less stable.
Yeah.
We do get the NFIB report tomorrow morning, the National Federation of Independent Business People, and they also indicate how they think inflation is doing with regard to their inputs and their outputs. So that might be helpful before Wednesday. Okay, and the 2-year and the 2-year's not trading right now. We have got oil. Okay, 72.41. So it did bump up a little bit today, about $1. Excuse me. And Brent actually more, up to 76.13.
Oh, that's a big bump.
Yeah. So
it's $2, $2.50, $3.
Yeah, well, it's almost $3.50 more than the Texas Intermediate.
No, but it's up by almost $2 or over $2.
Yeah, from this morning. Natural gas also, but only slightly, but it's trading much better than it was last week. So it had dropped a lot. So I think some of this, Larry, might be oil recovering a little bit. It had dropped so much.
Too much, yeah.
This might be just a little bit of the market playing, and that also could be natural gas because it dropped a lot rapidly.
Yeah.
And gold, Larry, this is the great one. This is the one.
Up
29.38. 29.38. We're making a play.
We'll see 3,000.
Wow.
I predict 3,000.
Had a lot of discussion about that on X today, but it's like I don't know anything that's changed. The central banks are still buying it, and the individuals are still buying it. So I'm not sure. There could be what's that called? There could be not a FOMO, but a fad, if you will. What would you call a fad in a market like that? It's not exactly FOMO. It's more like everybody's
It's everybody piling on. I mean, but I think there's more than that. I think it's this whole BRIC thing.
Yeah.
It's China,
India.
I don't know about India. India's just got a very large gold market. I don't think India's buying for reserve purposes.
Yeah,
China's buying.
No, their central bank has been buying.
Their central bank has been buying.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
You are.
Yeah. Yeah. Bitcoin up 906 to 97,285. So not much to say about Bitcoin, kind of in the middle right now. And as far as the stock futures, wait a minute, wrong place. All right, so the futures are giving up their gains for no particular reason that I know. Looking ahead is what the headline says. Looking ahead to key inflation data on Wednesday. So the Dow,
Nerves. Nerves.
so the Dow is giving up 62, our 0.14%, the S&P giving up 12, our 0.2%, and the NASDAQ giving up 54, our 0.25. So all three giving back a little bit of what they got today.
Right.
I think it's flat till Wednesday, Larry. I mean, barring some big news. Now, tomorrow is when Trump makes his official statement with regard to steel and aluminum. So my guess is you don't talk about what you're going to talk about 2 or 3 days in advance unless you're waiting for some kind of response from the players.
He has a habit of telegraphing his coming decisions or his coming announcements. So
Right.
maybe he was just telegraphing.
Well, this aluminum thing is big for Canada. I don't know a ton about it, but I think it's because they have those dams that generate all that electricity for virtually free. And so they do a lot of aluminum for us. It's a big part of the export.
We'll see.
Okay. Well, Larry, as always, I'm looking for the opportunity for you to leave us with one new piece of wisdom, not the same old buyers and sellers piece of wisdom, you know.
A new piece of
A
wisdom.
new piece of wisdom.
I don't have much wisdom tonight. I've been too busy to generate any wisdom. I think you know, I'll say this: the market in general should be very optimistic with what this administration is doing. I mean, if we had a good market before this administration came in, or pretty well-priced market, I think there's room to run. That's what I think. I think there's room to run.
All right. Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. And it is Good News Monday. So
Good News Monday, but it's not investment advice.
but it's not investment advice. So don't necessarily buy the index because Larry told you to.
Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't tell them to. I just think I think there's room to run.
It's your wealth of wisdom, having lived a very rich life. I don't mean wealthy rich. I mean rich
Yeah.
in terms of experience.
I've lived a rich life. I have no regrets.
All right, Larry.
Should have some regrets, I guess.
You don't have no heck with that. It's been great, Larry, and to all of you, it's been great talking to you.